Welcome back. So the Water and Sanitation Department says it's monitoring the Vaal Dam, which is now over 90% full. It says it will do everything to ensure that it does not overflow, as this could lead to a disaster. This comes as officials conducted an oversight visit at the Eikenhof pump station yesterday as the country marks Water Month. We are now joined by Deputy Minister for the Department of Water and Sanitation, DM David Mahlobo. Deputy Minister, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, this is quite the moment, right? I mean, we talk about water availability all the time, and then when we've got the Vaal Dam sitting at 90%, there's concerns that it may overflow. So I think let's start there with the percentage that you think that you believe at this point, where we are right now, where the dam is sitting, and some of the greatest concerns that the department is worried about.
No, thank you very much, Naledi. One of the things we want to join other people who have conveyed their sincere condolences to the families in KwaZulu-Natal that have lost their loved ones, and others are to be evacuated on the basis of the ongoing inclement weather that has caused floods because of the issues of climate change. We are actually having two opposite ends. In one instance, our country is very pleased that we've received very good rains, especially if you remember the Vaal River Dam at a particular point was so low that it was actually approaching 20%. Then we're going to be pumping water from the other system so that it doesn't become below 18% at the beginning of the year. As we stand this morning, we're at 92.47%. That's the Vaal Dam itself. But when you look at all these other 14 dams that are supplying the Vaal River system, we are now sitting at more than 95%, while in KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban, the Umgeni system, those 4 dams that are supplying from Maritzburg until Tegwin and other areas, were actually at more than 98%. A number of these dams are overflowing. But in terms of the designs, there is no need for a panic at this stage. Our designs have a spillway. In other words, by the time it reaches the 100%, 101, it releases the water, and that water is so controlled on the basis of the designs. But at a particular point, when you look at the Vaal Dam itself, it has sluice gates. Those particular sluice gates, if it is going to be at a point when they need to be opened, when the dam is actually full above at 100%, we should be in a position first to communicate with citizens, give enough warning, especially those who are living downstream. Because some of the problems we face now is that some of our people, they've decided to build within the floodplain, which is 1:100. And most of them, the last time when there was releases in the Vaal system there, some of those people are just within a meter or two inside the dam, those beautiful houses that are there. And then they get to be flooded. And then it looks like a disaster when people are actually crossing the red line. And then the last point is that because there are too much rains, we'll have to spend more time to be monitoring. Minister said, let's monitor the infrastructure. Remember when the disasters in KwaZulu-Natal happened, most of our big pipes were washed away, and some of the pipes that are for reticulation were washed away. We are monitoring them because we did manage to build much better in KwaZulu-Natal. But more important, we must keep to monitor the quality of water, that there is no issues of bacteria that are coming in. Those who are operating the plant must monitor them on daily basis and hourly basis, and then be in a position to monitor that the water is not dirty. In other words, issues of turbidity.
Yeah, and then just with this oversight visit that took place with yourselves at the department as well as with the minister, obviously the conversation will then become, making the most of this moment. You do have the Eikenhof pumping station, for instance, that is responsible for, is it 60% of citizens in the Johannesburg area?
60% for Johannesburg, but also includes Mohale City and Rustenburg.
Yeah, and so what she's talked about is the importance of a good partnership and working relationship with city powers, that we're getting this water into people's homes as it fills up where we see in our dams.
It's an important decision, Sis Naledi, that was taken because the relationship between water and electricity, there is that particular nexus. Because if you don't have power, you will not be in a position to pump. But at the very same time, ESCOM will not be in a position to produce electricity if there's no water. The provincial government, led by Comrade Banyaza Lesufi, they have taken a decision. Mfuleni is where most of the substations that Rand Water is dependent in terms of their pump stations has been so weak over time. They have agreed that ESCOM will take over that particular component. And Johannesburg is supported by Eikenhof. Eikenhof gives them about 1.3 billion liters a day. And if Eikenhof fails, most of the areas in Johannesburg, that's why they had no water. Therefore, the role of City Power as an energy supplier assigned by the Premier, they must ensure that they work with ESCOM, upgrade the substation around in Orlando and the other areas so that we don't have a problem. But we're very pleased when we're on site that even Rand Water itself, they are building a massive diesel generators there so that if electricity fails, they are in a position to continue to have a standby generators that are there. Because if it takes an hour for electricity not to be available, for the water system to recharge, to be at a healthy level, it can take a minimum of 5 hours and it can take a lot of days, and it becomes a biggest inconvenience. Therefore, the investment around electricity infrastructure and the water infrastructure by Gauteng, especially the city of Johannesburg, is the right thing to do.
Yeah. You know, Deputy Minister, you've talked about those vulnerable communities that live on, I suppose, waterways and on the edges of them. Should we, worst case scenario, face a situation where we may see some overflow, do we have the time to share those warnings with some of those residents in vulnerable communities?
We do have time. In terms of intergovernmental relations, the Ministry of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, with all of us, Minister of Water, the police, we sit in the National Disaster Management Center. There is an interministerial committee on disaster management. We're working with provinces, working with municipalities, NGOs, and others. That's what we need to be able to do, to continuously coordinate. When there's a need for evacuation, we communicate with all forms of communication. But government alone, Sister Lady, in the main, will not succeed if citizens, they don't actually adhere to the clarion call. A number of roads these days, they are actually waterlogged. And some of the cars, you could see there are many biggest problems. And some of the people, when they are being told to say, please move out, there is a particular warning. And weather services has been playing an important role, including yourselves, who have been continuing to give the message. But going forward, we must deal with the question of human settlement. We can't have people that are being settled in areas where the geological formation, there can be soil erosion, people are actually within the flood lines, and some of them, you can actually even see that even when you do the release, because when you do a release, let's say in the Vaal Dam, you can affect communities until in the Northern Cape.
Yeah, and so, you know, there's obviously then the need for the department to keep interactions open, whether it be with the Department of Human Settlements. Is the Department of Human Settlements coming to the party sufficiently to assist you with dealing with that crisis?
They are actually working very close with Minister of Human Settlement, Minister Thembi Simelane, including Deputy Minister Mahambe Shala, with the MECs that are there. But one of the problems that we're also discussing with them is to say, in as much as you are settling people in these particular areas, we must be able to ensure that in terms of integrated human settlement, we look at issues of flood lines, but we must also look at the issues of the technology we use on how we build. We must start to build much better in terms of the technology that can become resistant when some of these climate change shocks we're normally experiencing. In our own case, we lost 2 pipelines that were carrying more than 200 million liters of water in KwaZulu-Natal. It was Aquatat 1 and Aquatat 2. The manner in which the engineers had built at that particular point, they never thought that certain rock falls are going to happen within that particular flood line. At least when we spoke with the engineers now, they guaranteed us that they are building something that is closer to what if we are building a bridge inside a sea whether we are building a refinery. That's why the issues of designing better, building much better, using the appropriate technologies and solutions is the way to do.
Yeah, I think that I'm also keen to hear if the department is in conversation at all with KZN provincial government, and just to talk about the infrastructure need where draining systems are concerned. And what do we need to do to ensure that we're able to improve that when we know that areas like KZN, for instance, is so prone to floods? From a sanitation point of view, is there a role that can be played by your own department there?
Our department, they sit on the provincial disaster management team. This morning, we had a meeting between the mayor of eThekwini and our ministry around the water situation in the main. You remember eThekwini has been on the news around many communities having no access to water. But equally, we then had to make a decision to uplift the restriction that we've given while they are implementing the plans to address their water challenges, non-revenue water, illegal connections. But in the morning at 7 o'clock when we took that meeting, it was pouring in terms of the rain, and most of the areas were waterlogged. We gave our teams the instruction to say, monitor the infrastructure in terms of its resilience and the ability that it can still be in a position to provide service. But at the very same time, we know that the MECs of Kokta in the province and MEC for Human Settlement, they've been working under the guidance of the Premier and the Minister nationally. There are those particular interactions so that at least the immediate task is humanitarian relief for those particular communities that are being affected, including issues of search and rescue. That must be in a position to happen. But we are part and parcel of all those interventions. Even when the floods happened in the year 2022, we played a very biggest part working with Human Settlement and the other role players, depending on the declaration of the disaster in that province.
Yeah. Well, Deputy Minister, we really have appreciated your time this evening. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Deputy Minister there for Water and Sanitation, David Mahlobo, speaking to us this evening.